and then 81 altogether. We graduated high school in the late 60s. 66, they graduated high school. I graduated 67. He is my friend on Facebook now, but I have not seen him in probably since they graduated high school in 1966. Probably the last time I saw that boy. But that, and that's, I'm sure that's not his parent. I think I know his parents are probably dead now. But this was his parents' phone number when he lived at home. So what I'm saying is that I couldn't just look at those numbers and just keep saying to myself, you know, keep saying it, because I wouldn't remember it for years. But I had a system for it, and that's what I tell children when I used to teach elementary. A word like purple, we'd have a spelling test, and somebody might, they may know the letters are there, but they may start it with the L or something, or they come up with some weird spelling. I said, how could you even get that out of that? Because when they studied the spelling words, I knew what they were doing was looking down, looking up, looking down, looking up, just trying to memorize the letters. I said, no, those letters have a sound. It says p-o, because that's what the sounds say. Then you don't have to memorize it, it makes sense. And so what I'm saying is that you have to hook it to something. 8 ounces in a cup, what I picture is a measuring cup. Now if you don't do very much cooking, that's not going to help you. But that's how I always remember. I picture that measuring cup, and I picture it's broken off into 2 ounces each. There's 8 ounces in that cup. And then I know that it goes 2, 2, 4. Because that makes sense to me. 2 plus 2 is 4. And I know that it goes cups, pints, quarts, gallons. You see, I did have to memorize how the labels went up from the smallest to the largest. So 2 cups equals a pint, because I know it goes from cups to pints to quarts to gallons. Okay? So 2 cups to make a pint, 2 pints make a quart, and 4 quarts make a gallon. Now that's how I remember it. That's what makes sense to me. But I had to study it to see the relationship. Study it to figure out, because you can't memorize everything in the world that you need to know. Some of the stuff you have to figure out a system to make it make sense to you. There's too many things to memorize. Too much stuff. And so, and then that all makes sense because there's that 8 up there, and the 8 and 4, and you know what I mean? There's just 2 4s and 8s there, so I know that's, those numbers got to be there. So whatever it takes for you to memorize it, you need to know. Because you'll have to change things from cups to pints, from pints to quarts, from cups to quarts, cups to gallons. They may ask you how many cups are in a gallon. The other thing that the younger folks don't have as a reference, because when plastic took over, milk always comes in plastic and you can't see it quite as well. But when I had to learn those things, it came in, and you still see it in those like paper cartons. And they made sense because in school we had these little ones. You know, those little cartons of milk they give you in school. And then when I have to buy half and half for a recipe or something, it comes in one that's like this. So I knew that was a pint. And it would take 2 of those to make one of those, see? 2 half pints to make a whole pint. And then we had the quart of milk. They still have quart if you buy buttermilk or something. You'll still see it in the things. But it's the smaller tall carton. And it made sense because I can picture that it would take 2 of those to make this whole quart of milk. And then the half gallon would be a fatter one, and then the gallon would be a whole big square, and you could see 4 of those quarts could fit on that big gallon. You could see that it would be 4 of those Mine's not so accurate, but I could see that 4 of those quarts could fit on this big gallon. And so truly, I'm going to show you how to do it using proportion. But for me, when I get questions like that, how many, I draw a picture. I draw a picture. If they ask me how many, and I know that this is 8 ounces, which is the same as that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if they ask me how many cups, for instance, they're in a gallon, you don't have to memorize that because you can draw it or you can figure it out with a proportion, okay? If I drew this gallon here, and I know it's 4 quarts, and I know that in each quart there are 2 pints, so I have 8 pints in there, and in each pint I have 2 cups. And that's what I would, I'd start doing, and then I could see how many I'm doing. There's 4 down, there's 8 down here and 8 up there, so there's 16 cups in a gallon. So I'd always draw it because I knew this. 2 cups in every pint, 2 pints in every quart, and 4 quarts in every gallon. I would just draw it. But you can always say, if I want to change cups to gallons, I would write it as a proportion, cups to gallons. And I would say, they want to know how many cups are in, let's say, 3 gallons. That could be your question. I know that there are 16 cups in 1. You always have to know how many are in 1. If you know how many are in 1, you can figure out how many are in any of them. If there's 16 in 1, how many, because they're asking cups, that's where the question mark goes, in 3 gallons. Gallons are here. That's why, first of all, you always have to write the initials or the words out so you know what to put where. I can't put cups on the top here and then put cups on the bottom here and come out right. Okay? I could have said gallons to cups. I didn't have to say it doesn't matter, because then I'd have 1 gallon gives me 16 cups, so 3 gallons would give me how many cups? It doesn't matter which one goes on top as long as you're consistent. Once you have it in a proportion, it's just like percent that we just finished doing. Multiply the corners, divide by the other number, that gives you this answer here. So 16 times 3 is 48, divided by 1 will still be 48. So there'd be 48 cups in 3 gallons. If I wanted to know how many cups in a half a gallon, I still say if there's 16 cups in 1 gallon, how many cups, and I can put the half as 0.5 or as 1/2, however you want to do it. I still have to multiply this times this. You get your 8, and of course you've got to figure that out, but just to show you, or I could say 16 times a half. You can cancel there and get your 8, or I could have said 16 times 1 and 1 times 2 and still get your 8. And either way, you get your 8. But the main thing is knowing how many are in 1. That's what you're going to have to memorize. And I never memorize how many cups are in a gallon. All I memorize are how many quarts are in a gallon. All I do is memorize this, because if I can memorize this, like I said, I can draw it and see how many of the little ones are in there. I don't memorize that. Or I can do a ratio, a proportion, and figure out how many are in there. But you do need to memorize those. Now that's for liquid. For dry, how many ounces in a pound? 16. 16. What was- And how many pounds in a ton?
2,000.
2,000. And that was one that was a little hard for me to remember because the 2,000 just seemed weird. It seemed like it should be 1,000. So I just had to always remember in my head it's more than you think. It's 2,000. 2,000 ton TNT. You see what I mean? Whatever works for you. You have to figure out a way to memorize it. And what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other person. It's how you learn and how you remember. And that's how you figure out how you study. When you're looking at something, you're not just looking at it and looking up and trying to memorize that. You're trying to figure out what is it all about? What do I know that can make this make sense for me? What can I attach it to that I already know? Because that's how you're going to remember it. For linear, now this was for liquid. This is for dry measurements. And then we have linear measurements. Linear means, here's the base of the word, line. Anything you measure along a line, that's linear measurement. Anything you have to go out like that to measure, that's linear. So, how many inches, that's our smallest unit of measure. How many inches